You only sent me $200. You have no filial piety. I don't need those pennies anymore. My mother-in-law laughed and told us so. At this point, I heard something snap inside me. I see. I guess I'll stop then. Just think how much you benefited from us until now. My name is Jessica. I'm a 25-year-old office worker. I have a man named George whom I am currently dating. I met him through a mutual friend and we both like to exercise, so we went to the gym and played tennis together, which brought us closer, and we started dating. He's very kind, and just being with him makes me feel positive. We started living together a few months after we started dating, and he is also amazing at housework. This fried chicken is delicious.
I put some spice in it. That's why it's a little spicy. Not like regular fried chicken.
Wow, that's great! He has an inquisitive mind, and it shows in his cooking. We share the household chores, and we are each responsible for cooking in different days or the week, but he is clearly a better cook than I am. I wish you could cook every day. It really does taste like a restaurant.
Thanks, but I like the food you cook too. You make a really good gratin. My mom's gratin is a little too salty.
I see. My parents too, their dishes are very flavorful. They use too much salt.
That's right. On the other hand, some dishes are very light and tasteless, which my mom makes.
It's hard to find the right amount of salt in cooking. We spent every day together, talking, eating, and relaxing. I knew that I would enjoy spending time with him for the rest of my life. And then one day, out of the blue, George proposed to me.
Jessica, will you marry me? You are the only one I want to spend the rest of my life with.
George. He pulled out a ring and showed it to me. I was so happy I cried. Yeah, of course, and accepted the proposal. I was really happy and experienced growth and happiness. My heart was filled with excitement at the thought of becoming the best couple we could ever be and building a warm home together. Then we reported our marriage to each other's parents. My parents loved George very much, and they got closer immediately. I also have a younger brother who is 5 years younger than me, and he also loves him.
I always wanted a big brother, so I'm glad George is marrying my sister.
They exchanged contact information and went to the batting center on their days off. So I was surprised at how quickly they got to know each other. And next, we went to meet his parents. George's parents live in a rural area, so we took a plane on our day off and headed to his hometown.
I know it's rural compared to New York.
But I think it's a nice place with clean air.
Really? Thank you.
I was enjoying the scenery of his hometown from the window while riding the train. Finally, we arrived at his parents' house, and as soon as I stood in front of the house, I started to get very nervous. Would I be okay? Would they like me? When I anxiously asked him that, he replied,
Don't worry about it. My parents are very kind to all comers.
He rang the doorbell, and his parents opened the front door and welcomed me. Oh my, you've come a long way. Nice to meet you. My name is Jessica. You are so pretty.
We're the parents of George. Oh yes, please come up. We don't want to stand around and talk.
Thank you. His parents greeted me very warmly. Do you want some tea cakes? Or do you want a drink? Tea cakes, please. You don't have to be shy at all.
If you want, we might as well get steak delivered and start a party. Mom, Dad, you're a little too excited. It's still daytime, so let's just relax with tea cakes for now.
Yes, let's do that. His parents were cheerful and very pleasant people, just like George. His father runs a small business and is well known in the area. However, he does not want to force his son to take over the business and says that George can live his life as he likes. So, George went to college in New York and then went straight to work for a company there. Still, I thought to myself, maybe someday he will follow in his father's footsteps. Then, we will live in this area. It's very peaceful here, and as I said before, the air is clean. So, it would not be bad to live here. Thanks to his parents, who were cheerful people, we had a very pleasant conversation. It was lunchtime, so we ended up having steak delivered and some delicious wine. His parents became even funnier with alcohol, and I laughed the whole time. We had such a good time that it was hard to believe I came here to say hello for the first time. A few weeks later, we had dinner at a hotel restaurant for a meeting of both families.
Hi, we are George's father and mother. Nice to meet you. I'm Jessica's father and mother.
Both of our parents got to know each other quickly, and the meeting proceeded in a relaxed atmosphere from start to finish. We then had a happy wedding. We invited many of each other's friends, colleagues, and relatives, and the big ceremony became a memory that will last a lifetime. My parents cried when they saw me in my wedding dress.
George, please, take good care of my daughter.
Seeing my dad say that with tears in their eyes, I couldn't help but cry as well. Seeing us, my mother and George's parents also cried, but my brother was cheerful and said,
Everyone, stop crying and smile,
and took pictures of us. Later, I was shown a picture of that moment, and it was funny, because everyone's eyes and nose were red and tearful. Looking at it with George, we laughed. That's the best memory I have. Then George and I started our new married life as husband and wife. Since we were living together, there were no major changes in our lives, but it was still very exciting and fresh, just to be newlyweds. We were very happy, supporting each other. It really is true that the good times fly by, and we realized that 2 years had already passed since we got married. After 2 years, we were still in love as ever, but something sad happened to us. It was the death of my father-in-law. The cause was acute heart failure. My husband's mind went blank when he heard the news of his father's death. We had just recently visited his in-laws for New Year's Day, and at that time they were in good health and happily drinking together. So when he heard that he had suddenly passed away, it was hard to believe it. But when we quickly made our way to the hospital, there he was, covered with a white cloth, my father-in-law. Oh no.
Dad, why?
My husband could not stop crying. My mother-in-law seemed to have cried a lot and was sitting on a hospital bench in a state of abandonment. My father-in-law's death was too sudden and we were shocked. But funeral arrangements had to be made. In addition, my father-in-law would have to deal with a lot of things about his company. My mother-in-law was devastated, so George and I worked together to prepare and arrange for my father-in-law's funeral. Many people attended my father-in-law's funeral, which showed how well liked he was. However, when the funeral was over, a lawyer came to the scene, and my husband and I were told a surprising fact. My husband and I were surprised to learn that my father-in-law's company had not been doing well for several years and had been losing money. The company had no choice but to go bankrupt. We were completely in the dark. When my husband questioned my mother-in-law, she said, "He said it would be fine." She did not seem to have heard many of the details. She said that the company's liabilities due to bankruptcy exceeded $200,000. My husband and I almost collapsed when we heard about such a huge amount of debt. No matter how much my husband and I work together, we do not have enough reserves to prepare such a large sum of money. And my mother-in-law was a housewife, so of course she could not pay. After thinking about what to do, my husband talked with my mother-in-law and decided to sell my parents-in-law's house first. The family-in-law's house was in a good state because it was bought when my father-in-law was the president of his company. And when we put it on the market, we were lucky enough to sell it for $200,000, the same amount as our debt. For the time being, we were relieved that our debt had been paid. However, we had to think about where my mother-in-law would live. My husband suggested that she come and live with us. My mother-in-law is afraid of New York and does not want to leave her hometown where she has lived for many years. If that is what my mother-in-law wants, we have no choice. So my husband decided to do as she requested and look for an apartment in the same area as my parents-in-law's house. We found an apartment that was just right for a single person to live in, so we decided to have her live there. Thank you so much, Jessica and George. I don't know what I would have done without you two.
Mom, don't worry.
Yes, we are a family, and you can always count on us if you need help. Thus, my husband and I were relieved when we found a room for my mother-in-law to live in. We contacted my mother-in-law regularly after we returned to New York. Are you doing well? I'm fine. I'm sorry I made you send money to me. No, don't worry about it. I'm sorry that the amount is so small. No, don't say that. It is really helpful. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're pleased. If I get a decent amount of time off, George and I will come to see you. Okay, I'll look forward to it. My mother-in-law was very appreciative of us on the phone. My husband and I have been sending her $200 a month to help her make ends meet. My mother-in-law still has a few more years before she gets her pension. During that time, her life will be a little difficult, but it is still better than not sending money. That is why we sent money to her, although it was not much. After a few years passed, my mother-in-law started to receive a pension. This made her life somewhat easier. But my husband and I continued to send money to my mother-in-law. And I realized that 25 years had passed since I started sending money to my mother-in-law. I was 25 years old when my husband and I got married, but it has been 27 years since we got married, so I am now 52 years old. My mother-in-law, who gave birth to my husband when she was 20, is now 72 years old, and I felt that a long time had passed. And then one day I received a phone call from my mother-in-law. How are you? Jessica, I called you today to ask you for a favor. What is it? Well, actually, my life has been pretty difficult. You see, prices have gone up and things are getting more expensive. That's right. So, I want you to increase my monthly remittance from 200 to 500. 500? I was surprised. That's too much. That would be difficult. Why? You guys have been working in New York for years, so you must be making a good living. I heard that. I heard that wages in New York are much higher than in the countryside. So what's the point of not being able to send more money to me? I was surprised at how aggressive my mother-in-law was. Oh, wait a minute. I can't make a decision on my own, so let me consult with George. Please let me discuss this with George and I will contact you. When I said this, my mother-in-law agreed with me for the time being. Please, call me as soon as possible because I am having a hard time making ends meet. With that, my mother-in-law hung up the phone. I was perplexed and reported this to my husband when he came home from work that day.
What? My mom said that?
Yeah, she seemed a little different from the way she used to be.
I see, but 500 is not possible. We have a child and he is in junior high school now, and we are going to have to pay for school expenses.
Yeah, we're still sending money to her even though it's pretty tight right now.
I'll call my mom and let her know.
Okay. My husband called my mother-in-law and explained that it would be difficult to raise the amount of money we send her, but she became angry as if she had lost her mind.
Why can't you increase my allowance? You are my son. Normally, you would do as you say, out of filial piety. Calm down a little, will you? You are the one who is not making calm decisions, are you? We're on the edge too. You are getting a pension, and it must be not that tight for you.
Even when my husband says so, my mother-in-law got angry and wouldn't listen to him, saying that life was tough. My husband was also upset by the change in my mother-in-law, but we did not raise the money we were sending her. Then my mother-in-law started calling me every day. The content was all about asking me to send more money. My mother-in-law called me a lot on my and my husband's phones, even during the daytime, without thinking about our convenience. Even if I ignored the calls, I couldn't focus on my work because of the devil's phone calls. And whenever I answered the phone, she would always urge me to increase her remittances. When I refused to increase her remittances, she would call me and say that I was a bastard, and that I should just lay down and die. She also seemed to be making a lot of calls over our phone at home, and she even asked my son, who answered the phone, for the money. Both my husband and I were mentally exhausted by my mother-in-law's persistence. We had to do something about this as soon as possible. My husband and I decided to see my mother-in-law in person. We arrived at the station nearest the house where my mother-in-law lived, and we were suddenly accosted by an elderly woman about the same age as my mother-in-law.
George, is that you? Hello, it's been a while.
The woman who approached us was the mother of one of my husband's former classmates. They had been close family friends for a long time, and the classmate had come to our wedding.
Are you coming home with your wife? Yes, I do.
My husband answered while scratching his head. How peaceful it would have been if it was just a homecoming. As my husband laughed bitterly, the mother of the classmate looked a little grim.
George, do you know about that? That your mother is a frequent visitor to the casino?
We were surprised to hear the statement. According to the story, my mother-in-law goes to the casino every day, and she became so famous among the neighbors.
Some of the neighbors had been even asked for money. Oh no.
We finally understood why my mother-in-law wanted money so badly. But we had no idea she was spending all that money on gambling. We immediately went to the apartment where my mother-in-law lived.
What are you doing here?
My mother-in-law was quite upset when we visited her.
Mom, will you please stop calling us to ask for money?
When my husband said this, as expected, my mother-in-law's face turned red, and she got angry.
What are you talking about? You are my son. You and your wife owe me a good life. If you have the money to pay for the transportation to come all the way here, then give me that money.
My mother-in-law shouted. Is that how you take money from us and use it for your casino?
How do you know about that?
My mother-in-law got upset when we told her about gambling.
Mom, don't gamble. It's only destroying you.
My husband tried to tell her, but she wouldn't listen to him.
Shut up. You just don't know my talent. I recently won the jackpot at a horse race. I won $10,000. Isn't that great? That's 50 times the 200 you guys sent me. In other words, I won the equivalent of about 4 years' worth of money in less than an hour.
We were all dumbfounded.
Mom, it's just a gamble. Shut up. Don't underestimate me. You guys send so little money that I have no choice but to increase it like this. You have no filial piety to send me only 200. But now that I know that I have the ability to increase it, I don't need it anymore. I don't need that kind of penny.
My mother-in-law said to us with a broad smile on her face. At this point, I heard something snap inside me. Oh well, I guess we'll stop then.
Right, since you don't seem to need us anymore.
When we said that, my mother-in-law scowled for a moment, but she immediately said,
That's fine. Let's cut the ties between parent and child now.
Finally, we were completely at odds with each other. We didn't expect my mother-in-law to become a gambler like this, but we had tried to be there for her enough. but she has rejected all of our attempts, so it can't be helped. Just think how much you have benefited from us. We immediately left my parents-in-law's house and went back to our own house. About a month passed. As expected, I received a devil's phone call from my mother-in-law. It was my day off, so I decided to answer the phone. Hello, what's the matter?
Jessica, what's going on? I received a notice that the rent is not paid.
That's right. My husband and I had done all the transfers and stuff. I explained it all to you when you moved into the house, didn't I? We said we would pay the rent, utilities, water, etc. on your behalf.
Really?
What are you talking about? Didn't you ever wonder why you didn't have to pay rent or anything before?
Well, I thought that was a welfare thing because I am low income.
I'm so stunned. We were sending you $200 a month after we were responsible for the money that cost you over $1,000 a month. And you talk about it as if we didn't do anything, which is crazy.
I'm sorry, Jessica. I completely forgot about that. I apologize, so can you send me $200 a month again?
No, I don't send money anymore. Besides, now that you have the $10,000, you can live on it for a while, right?
Well, that's the thing. I thought I could increase it a little more, so I put half of the $5,000 into horse racing, and it was gone in an instant.
Really? But my husband has told me that I don't have to send money or support you anymore. There's no point in going any further. I have nothing to say to you, so I'm going to hang up now.
Oh no, wait, Jessica.
I hung up the phone without caring. Then I blocked her number. When I told my husband as he came home from work, he was stunned.
I blocked the calls too, so you don't have to worry about it anymore,
he said. Then, according to my relatives, my mother-in-law couldn't stop gambling, got into debt, and was evicted from her house because she couldn't pay the rent and other bills. She then turned to all her relatives, but they all rejected her, saying that no one wanted to keep such a gambler in the house. I don't know what my mother-in-law is doing now, but she may be being hounded by debt collectors. But it's none of our business anymore. It's all my mother-in-law's own fault. On the other hand, now that my husband and I no longer have to support my mother-in-law's lifestyle, we have more money to spare and can start saving for our son's future school expenses. We will continue to live in harmony and support each other as a family. Jessica and her husband have provided a great deal of support up until now, but she is a terrible mother-in-law to blame them and forget the benefits of that support. And she deserves it for getting addicted to gambling and getting into debt. I hope Jessica and her husband and son live happily together from now on.